Well, a warm welcome to today's talk. It's Saturday the 29th of July now. On this channel we feel free to wander into what might be called political areas if it impacts on people's health. And I think you'll see today that what we're talking about, largely related to freedom of speech issues, does. I'm going to start off with Senator Alex Antic, Senator for South Australia, speaking in the Australian Senate. Over to you, Senator. Thank you.
Noticed the term myocarditis and died suddenly has featured quite a lot. Now, we know that myocarditis and pericarditis are two heart inflammation conditions well associated with the COVID mRNA injections. Even the Therapeutic Goods Association admits that. Yet, despite this well-established fact, the injections were mandated to thousands of Australians, and speaking out about these incursions on freedom got one labelled an anti-vaxxer or a peddler of dangerous misinformation. Now, I've obtained data through Freedom of Information from SA Health in South Australia regarding the number of cardiac presentations per month in South Australian public hospitals since 2018. The data reveals that cardiac-related presentations for 15 to 44-year-olds remain steady at 1,100 per month from January 2018, but drastically spiked in July 2021 through November 2021, peaking at 2,172 per month just as these injections were rolled out. They almost doubled. Then there was another spike in February of this year, right around the time when the boosters were being mandated. These injections are harming and in many instances killing our young people. So what does SA Health have to say about this? Nothing. They continue to roll out the injections. They continue to push the injection narrative. This injection campaign is going to go down as the greatest scandal in medical history, and none of you said a single thing.
Well, it's a pity the camera didn't swivel round there. We might have seen some Australian senators somewhat squirming in their seats. The idea that anyone who opposed the narrative was labelled as being some sort of irrational person. The lack of open debate, just incredible. The fact that information even now in Australia is only coming out as a result of freedom of information requests, in that case looking at increased cardiac episodes in young adults, 15 to 44-year-olds. Really quite a few things adding up there that are uncomfortable. The main one being the deafening silence from politicians. Now, I want to move on now and look at a story that's just come out of the United States as well that's quite related here. Now, this is from the Wall Street Journal. Facebook bowed to White House pressures, removed COVID posts. Now, I mean, I certainly had pretty well anything I put up on COVID for a long time was fact-checked or flagged up in various ways by Facebook, and very often they referred to some fact-checker that claimed to be checking facts as if there was some oracle from Mount Olympus coming down to inform us mere mortals of what was what. Anyway, this is from the Wall Street Journal. Now, I'm confused about this. I've got a question for you in a minute if you're from the United States. Internal Meta emails says pressure from Washington, that's from the presidency, was behind a decision to take down posts attributing pandemic to a man-made virus. So this whole lab leak episode that human beings were involved in the origin of SARS coronavirus there's no question about it now in my mind. The virus just happened to arise within a mile or two, few miles, of the largest coronavirus laboratory in the world of all the 74 million square miles of land surface area. Bit of a coincidence. Anyway, we've been through that many times before. But the point is, it looks like that information, or that debate at least, was deliberately suppressed for a long period of time. So this started off with one of the Facebook leaders, Nick Clegg, who's an executive of some sort, I think, in Facebook. And on an email, which has become now been exposed or released somehow, asked why the company was removing posts rather than demoting or rather than labelling or demoting. Well, first of all, why would they be demoting posts that were expressing a legitimate point of view? But it appears they were being removed. A Facebook vice president, according to the Wall Street Journal and the Telegraph, although I got mine from the Daily Telegraph, we were under pressure from the administration and others to do more. So almost sounds like pressure. And then they say we shouldn't have done it. Well, I'm not sure what the censorship position is on Facebook now. I've basically basically stop using it. I found it to be too inhibiting to use, basically. So this is being looked at by the Republican House Judiciary Committee, and Jim Jordan, speaking for the committee, says this: documents begin to reveal the pressure that Facebook and other social media companies were under to alter their content moderation policies and remove protected speech to appease the federal government, particularly the Biden White House. And of course, Facebook is not the only social media company where this has been an issue. Now, I'm genuinely confused here. In the United States, is the president allowed to interfere with free speech? Does the First Amendment just apply to Congress? Because this is the First Amendment here. If you're from the States, you know it well. It's talking about Congress shall make no law. And including in that is freedom of speech. The abridging of freedom of speech. So freedom of speech is in the American Constitution. At least Congress is not allowed to interfere with it. Is the presidency allowed to interfere with freedom of speech? And indeed, has this happened? Very, very confusing country, the United States. Do let me know. Is it a genuine question? Do laws apply to Congress that don't apply? Does the articles of the amendment of the Constitution apply to Congress that somehow don't apply to the presidency? Now, let's move on to a friend of the channel now from Australia.
My question is, previously the Health Department has said that the PCR test cannot distinguish between live and dead viruses. How many positive PCR tests were false positives?
I don't know whether Professor Kelly can attempt to answer that. That answer is correct. The PCR test is testing, it doesn't distinguish between live and dead virus. I suspect the false positivity rate for PCR tests is very low, but Professor Kelly, have you got any insight into that?
Nothing else to add, really, Brendan. I don't think that's an answer that we could possibly give even on notice.
Yeah, this is the diagnostic tool that has been used to shut down a country for almost 2 years, that is used to justify spending hundreds of billions of dollars, and you can't tell me how accurate it is?
Well, I think there were some significant studies done earlier in the pandemic that correlated PCR tests against viral culture, and that obviously picked when there was a live virus there. But I think we can go back. The Doherty Institute did a lot of work on this. We can take on notice and provide you evidence of the specificity and sensitivity of the PCR test, and our advice certainly in the early stage of the pandemic is that it was highly specific and highly sensitive, but we'll provide notice.
So I'll follow up with another question then. Can you also provide, if you can't tell me, and I would have thought you could, what actual genomic sequence you tested for, which part of the 29 proteins, 1,000 nucleotides each protein, which part of the coronavirus genomic sequence did you use to indicate that someone was positive to COVID, and whether or not that genomic sequence also makes up other coronaviruses?
We can provide on notice the specific primers and the part of the virus that it's used for. We do not believe that there was cross-reactivity with other coronaviruses, but we can provide on notice we've got experts in the Doherty who could be very happy to provide that information.
Okay, and could you also provide the product assessment report for the diagnostic tools used for the PCR tests and the RAT tests? I can't seem to find them on the TGA website, but I would have thought that should be available so that we can scrutinise the actual diagnostic tool used to determine the positivity. Thanks.
Well, of course, that was Senator Gerard Rennick from Australia, who we've had on the channel a couple of times, asking really simple questions, but really quite profound questions, which I really couldn't resist playing that clip. So the officials there suspecting the false positive was low, but the boffin that they had on tap didn't seem to know, which some might find it a bit concerning. These fundamental questions, they didn't seem to have answers to them. Now, questions there are often taken on notice. That means don't know, mate, I'll go away and find out for you and get back to you. But I was talking to Senator Rennick last week, and he said that things that had been taken on notice, he had simply not got any information back. So it looks like in Australia, if you don't want to answer a question, you just say, I'll take that on notice, then you can not answer the question. But simple questions there about false positives, dead virus showing up as positive, of course, which it does, cross-reactivity, very simple. So a few things. We wonder why people become cynical about this. We're just not told the full story. Information we've seen about serious cardiac events only coming out as a result of freedom information requests. Not acceptable. Senators in Australia remaining silent, apparently, about this matter. People that are supposed to be representing us. And I'm not criticising Australia here by any means. The opposition, the government in my country seems to be hushing things up, but the opposition, which is supposed to flush them out, is about as much use as a chocolate fireguard. They are not interrogating the government over these issues. Censorship in the United States, is it coming from the very top? Could well be that it's coming from the very top. If so, that would concern me if I was an American citizen. That someone in the Oval Office can dictate, is that too strong a word, what people get to know about? You see, there's one thing getting to know about something and another point of view and saying, well, let's debate this, let's think about it. But when you don't even get to know a whole side of the narrative, a whole side of the debate, you don't even know it exists. You remain in a preconceptual form because you're simply not told. Very, very disappointing. But don't worry, politicians will be retired, they'll have died, or they'll have moved on to other lucrative positions. So no need to worry about them, thankfully. But real questions to be asked about the way that these larger systems have impacted your health, my health, and of course many of us have been touched by major issues and bereavements over this time period. And of course, how does this bode for the future? Do things need to change to improve health communication in the future? I would have thought so, but see what you think. And for now, have a good weekend. Thank you for watching. Sorry, I just couldn't resist tagging this on the end. This was apparently seen in Canada, in Vancouver, I think. Someone really quite cynical must own this van, unless they're a realist, of course. A politician who's someone who will lay down your life for his country. Bit naughty, but couldn't resist it.